Welcome to Rain Fresh Harvest. My name is Barry Adler. I'm growing on approximately a little less than an acre total. This up front here is only maybe a quarter acre total with the greenhouses. I've got about another half acre to 3/4 acres back the other side of the house. I've got some fruit trees. I've got field tomato crops out there, jalapenos, basil. Down here out in the field I've got a few tomatoes, basil, blackberries, a variety of peppers, some cucumbers, and in the greenhouses here I've got mizuna, arugula, cucumbers, spearmint, and I've got a variety of fish aquaponics operations in there too. Yellow perch, bluegills, koi. I originally looked at setting up a hydroponic organic tomato and lettuce operation. Crop King has had at the time some of the first greenhouses with that design. But as I did my due diligence, I found out my water was so terrible I would have to treat the water or run 35% of the water and leach every time I watered the plants. So I decided that wasn't going to work, because when I looked at the cost of reverse osmosis, it was going to cost me 2 cents more per pound for the tomatoes than I was going to be able to sell them for. Due to the water issues, I decided I had to design my own greenhouse, and I had been working at Scott's as a researcher for 22 years, and my job was outsourced, so I had some severance money to look into a new business. And at the time I was interested in renewable energy, but back in 2004 there was absolutely no market for it. So my background's in horticulture. I've got a master's degree in horticulture. I decided, well, I've got this land, I might as well grow things and do that as my business. So I started in and decided, well, I've got to design my own greenhouse to catch the water. And I thought, well, I can put renewable energy on it. Also, because at that time was the first year that the grants were available through the state of Ohio. So I combined both of my interests and designed this, and took about 1.5 years of figuring out all the ins and outs and looking at designs that seemed to work, and also different types of aquaponics that seemed to work, and I kind of designed and took off from there and designed my own system. This is an off-the-grid bio-integrated greenhouse, and it's powered by the sun and the wind. We have a 1 kilowatt Berge XL wind turbine, 2.1 kilowatts photovoltaics. There's 12 Siemens. They were originally 175 watts each, but one of them had to be replaced because I got a bullet hole in one of them about 3 years ago. And that's a 190 watt panel because they didn't make them 175 watts 10 years later. So in fact, those same size panels now, you can get almost about 400 watts in the same square footage. These are solar thermal collectors. I have a water drain back system. I originally started with a propylene glycol system, but it ended up, because of the way it was designed, it was letting air in the lines and the copper was starting to degrade. So another guy came along who had more experience in this area, and he said, no, get the propylene glycol out of there and just use straight water, and it's worked fine ever since. So at 34 degrees, everything drains back into the building so the pipes don't freeze in the wintertime. And this is hooked into a heat exchanger, and I'll show you when we get in there, that pumps the hot water, or takes the heat out of the water, puts it in a storage tank, or when that storage tank reaches a certain temperature, then I have PEX tubing and a concrete floor, so the floor itself acts as a thermal storage. I've got 2 tanks that I catch water in. One's underground cistern, one's on the second floor. Each of them has a capacity to catch 500 gallons, so I catch about 1,000 gallons of water. All it takes is about a ½ inch of rain, and that fills up that 500-gallon tank. If there's no wind or no sun, I've got battery backup storage that'll hold about 3 to 4 days running everything, but then when I know I'm not going to have sun or wind, I start shutting down things. I got about 40 different circuits in there. I can flip everything off and only run the essential systems, the bubblers for the fish, and irrigation and fans inside the greenhouse. So I can stretch it out to 5-6 days if I need to.
Right, I just thought I'd give you a quick look around the aquaponics setup I have here. We'll start perhaps at the top. There's the solar panel feeding down into the battery boxes down here. The cable you see here is charges the battery overnight. The little solar panel is not sufficient to charge it. The pump that we're using is a cheap, quite a cheap little Chinese pump down here, pumping at 20 litres an hour, which is fine. Okay, so what's in the barrel is very simple. This barrel here contains the fish, or at least will contain the fish as soon as I've managed to cycle the thing. Here's the dam outlet. This here is a Venturi system that sucks air in, and you might be able to see it flushing. The bed itself, I've got scoria. At the moment I'm growing some lettuces, and there's some kale seeded, which is yet to come up. Here's the bell siphon. You can see the air on the side, tied together, sits in there. The way this works is very simple. As the water rises, it expels the air from inside the siphon, and when there's no air there, the water will rush down the pipe through the Venturi into the tank. The tank then, with this here, is an overflow. It collects the water from the bottom of the tank, brings it up, and overflows it here, and this is the sump tank over here. The sump tank got a bit of a cover over it, as you can see, a bit of algae growing, but the cover is basically to collect as much dust from the scoria as I can to keep it out of the system. It's been reasonably successful, not brilliantly. Here's the take to the pump, runs across here up to the pump. The pump, as I say, pumps up here and into the grow beds. At the back here we have another overflow, just in case the other one for some reason gets blocked. Will use this as this is higher than the other one, so it'll only use it when the other one gets blocked. But it'll make sure that anything won't, this won't overflow here, so the fish will actually stay in the bin. Right, at the top, very simple, we have a old patio cover which I've draped over the top, primarily to keep the rain off. The rain can be quite acidic at times. This keeps the rain off, but it also keeps the leaves off. We're coming into autumn here in New Zealand, and all the leaves are going to start falling, and I really don't want to have trees growing out of my aquaponics. Right, there's some basil, which I rescued from one of our garden beds. All that sprouting stuff there is lettuce. It's been in there just over a week, looking extremely happy. These lettuces were bought lettuces. They were bought in as seedlings and planted in here. Finally, the temperature, you can possibly see it there. We have about 18 degrees at the moment. It drops down to about 13 overnight, but the water in the tanks stays up at around the 15 degrees mark. Dark coloured scoria helps to heat it up. This little thing here, because we live in an urban environment and there's somebody sleeps very close to this environment, I switch the pumps off at night to stop the bell siphons draining It's called keeping the neighbours happy. Right, well that's a basic aquaponics setup. Permakai.nz if you want to read more.